Hi folks, welcome back to another episode of Liquid Loans Behind the Scenes. In this episode, I'm going to tackle something that I'm just absolutely loving at the moment, and that is what I call the WonDeFi play. So why am I calling it that? I think if you deploy this strategy, you have won DeFi. So what I want to talk about is a few of the components that have sort of arrived at our feet in the form of PulseX and liquid loans and the Pulse chain, and show you how these things are going to be complementary to each other, how we're going to see some really cool feedback mechanisms, and hopefully you'll get a bit of an understanding of where this can actually all go. It's pretty exciting stuff, and I'll show you this graphically, and then I'll point you to some references where you can see how far this can actually go when we look behind the numbers. All right, so WonDeFi. Let's have a look what this play, or this portfolio, I guess you could say, if you held these, what it would mean for you. So the first parts of the portfolio, we want a savings account. So we've already got that. Hex is our savings account. It's a store of value. We can put funds in there. It grows in capital value, but it also pays us a yield. So that's a massive tick. That's one piece of this puzzle that we need if we want to get away from the legacy finance system and start playing in our own parallel finance system, which is the decentralized finance system. What else do you need? Well, it's good to have somewhere where you can do some lending, and the central bank wouldn't be bad. If you owned a bit of the central bank, that would be pretty cool. So if you had something that was minting a stable coin, something that is the value exchange between the network that is not subject to price fluctuations, that'd be pretty cool to have that as part of your kit and to be an owner of that. PulseX, the exchange market, need somewhere to be able to swap these things. And what if you were an owner of that? What if you were holding something that was capturing the value in that market? And then Pulse chain. So you need something, the rails that all this is going to run upon. So low fee, low fee system, fast, easy to transact on, but you're an owner of that as well. So you're capturing the value in the underlying rails. So basically what you've built out is you've built out this layered approach where if you hold all of these pieces to the puzzle, that is the finance system you need. That is all we need to be able to transact, save, grow our wealth. To me, it's just magic. And when you see, so if you've got all those pieces of the puzzle and they're pretty unique in their own right, what happens if you snap all those together and you generate a few interesting feedback loops? What does that mean for all these assets and systems that you're actually now an owner of? So that's what we're going to do this session. We're going to dive into that a little bit. We'll talk about some of the feedback loops, and hopefully you can see where this is going by the time we finish. So first of all, we've said we own all the components of this DeFi system. And when I say own, what I mean by that is in the decentralized world, if you hold a token that captures the value of the service that it's delivering, that is the ultimate winner. So you're a participant in the system, but you're holding something in the system that's attracting all that value, and every time a transaction happens or the system's used, the value is getting built back into those tokens in the underlying system which you're a part of. So we see that already play out in Hex. You're the beneficiary of the system capturing value. Not like more economic energy gets drawn into the system, that translates to price growth in the Hex token, but also an improvement in yields and things like that, because you're staking Hex and you're generating a yield. So if that's appreciating in value, you're capturing all that value and compounding within the system. So in Pulse, let's have a look at the rails and how that captures value. So within Pulse, so we've got the Pulse system running here, and if you're a holder of Pulse, all the fees on the network are paid in Pulse. If you want to trade anything in Pulse, you're going to have to pay Pulse to pay the gas fees. But as you're doing that, a portion of those gas fees are getting burnt. So we all know by now that Pulse is a deflationary coin. So it starts off with maximum supply, and as transactions flow around the network, so as people use the network and run services like Hex and liquid loans on top of that platform, the fees that are used to use all those services, they get burnt. So I think it's about 25% of the transaction cost gets burnt every time there's a transaction on Pulse chain. So you're capturing that value, all those transmissions around the network, those transactions. The more of them that occur, the more value is captured in the Pulse chain coin. So we've covered Hex, we've covered the rails we hold. Let's have a look at the exchange. So every time a transaction happens on PulseX, what happens? We see a portion of the fees go into a pool, and those fees are used to buy PulseX token up off the market and destroy it, so burn it. So once again, you're capturing the value in that system. Let's have a look at liquid loans, so our lending in our central bank. If you hold the loan token, once again, any transactions that go through the liquid loans protocol, a fee is generated. That fee is paid to the holders and stakers of the loan token. So you're capturing the value within the system. Can you see where all this is going just from a value capture perspective? And that's really what gives value to cryptos, is the way you can capture that value. That's what makes a crypto perform really well. So we've got all the right pieces of the puzzle here. So they all capture value, they all provide a specific service. Now, what happens if we tie all these together and we do some pretty fancy things? Let's see what sort of feedback loops we can have. Okay, so if you're holding Pulse and you deposit that into, say, liquid loans, so you create a vault. So you've deposited some of your Pulse into the collateral side of a vault. So you've built that up, and you take a very safe loan. So in this case, we're saying 1,000% collateral, and we'll cover that in a little bit more detail. So we're taking 1,000% collateral loan against the Pulse that you've put in to the vault. Okay, what do you do with that loan? Well, you can bring that out to the system. So you've minted the stable coin. So remember, we're the central bank here. We're owning a part of the central bank. So we've just minted this stable coin. What does that stable coin get used for? Well, it goes into liquidity pools for pairs where you can trade Hex and the stable coin, USDL. Goes into a liquidity pool for Pulse and that particular stablecoin. So it's actually used out in the system. It's the equivalent of the USDC that you're used to pairing Hex with now, but on Pulse chain, we can become the owners of that stablecoin. So it's a useful token to have flowing around the system, and we get to mint it. We're the owners of the system that mints that. Every time this is minted, a fee is generated, and that goes to these loan holders. Okay, so that's really important. We own part of that system if we're loan holders. If we're loan token holders, we own a part of that system. Every time a loan's generated, fees are paid to the holders. Awesome. Now, let's see what we can do for one of our really big feedback loops. So we've already said we've minted some USDL over here. What if we were to take that USDL and buy Pulse off the market? So we're pushing more USDL out into the ecosystem. We've brought some Pulse, and we've taken that Pulse and we've added it back to our vault. So if we do this in a very safe way, so you've taken a 10% loan at a 1,000% collateral, we've purchased some more Pulse off the market, and we've added that into our vault. Now, you might have already seen this strategy if you've been paying attention to the Liquid Loans Telegram group, and that's a common strategy that's now called the Haunted strategy, and it's really quite unique what we're able to do with liquid loans on that front. But let's keep following through because I want you to understand where this all goes. So what happens by virtue of us doing that? So we're basically taking our USDL that we've minted, we're buying Pulse off the market, so that pushes the price of Pulse up, but we've acquired more Pulse, so we're accumulating more Pulse. So you're growing your Pulse bag. You can put that back into your collateral. When the price of Pulse goes up, you can do that again, and we can keep recycling this time and time again, as long as we keep our collateral ratios within an acceptable rate. Turns out a collateral ratio of this amount means you can withstand a market drop of about 80 to 90% with no stress. Okay, so that's a really safe collateral ratio. But what else happens? So remember, we're owners of all of this system. So as we keep recycling this through, we keep generating fees. So that's paying the loan token holders. But what also happens is every time we do this buy section here, so we're selling our USDL and buying more of our Pulse, well, what are we doing? We're generating fees within the DEX. Where do all those fees go? Well, they come down into this PulseX buy and burn pool. So every time the fees generate in here, goes, buys some PulseX, burns it, which causes the price of this to go up. So if you hold this PulseX token, you're capturing the value within that system. Same goes, if we come here and we're buying anything out of this pool, in fact, any pool on PulseX, we are generating the fees for the buy and burn, which will push the price of the PulseX token up. So what you can see already is there's this feedback loop where we're owners of the liquid loans protocol, so the lending protocol, where we are the central bank. We're generating fees from doing all of that work. We're improving the price of Pulse because it's got buy demand on it now, much the same way as when fees are fees are used for the buy, it's putting a lot of demand on the price of PulseX because we're buying it off the market. So that's exactly what we're doing here. We're buying more Pulse off the market. But we don't have to sell it. We can keep accumulating it and keep recycling this through. So it's a beautiful, beautiful feedback loop. Now, if you've been paying attention and you've been looking at the haunted strategy, there's a video out, and I'll put a link to this in the description below. But someone has gone through and looked at the actual numbers behind this haunted strategy. So what they've done is they've done an awesome explainer on how liquidity pools work and how if you buy up one side of the liquidity pool, what that does to the price and how far it pushes the price. It's worth a watch. You're gonna have to be patient and work through the numbers with the video, but it's awesome to understand this because you really get an appreciation of how much the price of Pulse can move up if there's enough buy pressure on that liquidity pool. So how do we get the buy pressure on the liquidity pool? Well, that's where the haunted strategy comes in. So you start doing that because that's generating the buy pressure. Now, if one person does that, yeah, it's pretty good. It's okay. It's generating extra buy pressure. Someone's accumulating more Pulse. The price of Pulse is going up. But what if 1,000 people are doing that? What if 10,000 people are doing that? What actually happens is the price of Pulse will have so much buy pressure behind it, it just pushes the price up really, really fast. Just accelerates our feedback loops. So if you can imagine every time you do this, the price of Pulse is going up, you're able to pull out more value, you're able to mint more stable coins and do whatever you like with it. Put it back into the market, buy more Pulse. There's going to be a point where if everyone's doing this, if we get to 10,000 people doing this, 20,000 people doing this, the amount of buy pressure on Pulse will have two effects. It will push the price up really, really high. What it will also do is mean the scarcity of Pulse will increase. So it'll be harder to buy Pulse. So the price will just keep going up. It's going to be harder to buy. What else could you do? Okay, well, you've already got a Hex savings account. You could deploy some of these funds and actually go and buy more Hex. What would that do? Well, it pushes the price of Hex up and it grows your Hex bag. You can go then stake that, do whatever you like. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is we basically have an infinite way to increase value of these assets by all the feedback loops, capturing it all within the system. So every dollar that comes in can be the velocity of that money moving around the system just increases the overall value. It's exactly what happens in the real world economy. You get that velocity of money moving through and it generates more money, more value than what that one original dollar into the system actually does. Okay, so you keep generating all this value, you keep being able to mint more of this USDL. What that means is you can go and buy more loan token, you can go and buy more Pulse X, you can go and buy more Hex, you can go and buy more Pulse. Do you understand what's happening here? You're getting more of an ownership of all of these systems with all of these positive feedback loops. That's why I call this the WonDeFi play. Because if you own all of these assets and you're using this system to its best advantage and taking advantage of all these price positive feedback loops, you have WonDeFi. It's all totally contained within this system, self-generating. You can't get any better than that. That is the ultimate. So I know I'm probably sounding a little bit excited here, but when you actually understand the numbers behind this, and we're not talking any numbers here, but once you actually understand the numbers and the amount of buy pressure that can be generated for Pulse through this strategy, you'll understand why I'm a little bit excited. It's just immense. So we've talked about all this buy pressure, but every time we're doing that buy pressure for Pulse, for loan, for Pulse X, for Hex, it is once again all feeding back into the Pulse X DEX. So everyone that holds Pulse X is getting that value as well. Do you understand where this is going now? So this ecosystem as a whole is being created by Richard Hart with the backing of an awesome community. So everyone that's in the Hex community, they understand the value of delayed gratification and holding. They're all very smart people. I know a lot of people are already onto this. They're understanding where this can go. But you bring that same community that understands all of that, put this in front of them. Once everyone understands how all the feedback mechanism works, it's game over. We have WonDeFi. The Hexicans, the Pulsicans, we've WonDeFi. Okay, so what I'm going to do, first of all, let's do a mention to the guys on the Magic Carpet Ride YouTube channel, because that's where the video is that I'm going to point you to, where it's the numbers behind the Haunted strategy. I'll also put a link for the Haunted strategy. Now there's a number of different videos out on that. So once you understand the Haunted strategy, watch the numbers behind the Haunted strategy video, then come back and watch this again. And then you'll actually start to see how all these pieces of the puzzle gel together and what that means for us as the owners of each of these systems. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for this episode, and I'll catch you all on the next one.